because we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, hello, folks. How are you? I hope you're having a bloody good day and life, the universe, and everything is treating you as it should, on the up and up. Although I know we are all struggling in our own different ways, and we'll get to a few of those struggles in the not too distant future. Aussie Sue, one of the first in the room tonight, and congratulations on your move south. Rather neglectful of me the other night not to mention it. I do apologise. I did see your pictures, though, going across on the barge. Were you game enough to get out of the car? I guess that's the big question. I hope you've been able to unpack it, probably doing it at your own pace. I don't imagine you've got everything undone yet, but I hope that your new abode and a whole bunch of new people to meet over on the island are looking after you, Sue. So God love you. And thank you for being one of our admins and doing the work that you do. Hello, Jan. Got a text from Dodo today. They want to change your power meter to a smart meter, calling them to say no, no, no. And I saw Tony's reply to that. A lot of people are being sent those letters. I'm not sure in which state you are, Jan. I'm guessing probably Victoria. Tony might be a hint there, but a lot of people are getting these letters to say that their meters in their homes, if they haven't already been changed, are being changed to smart meters. And I am pretty much of the same opinion that you have, Jan. You can't opt out. Tony seems to think that there is a way. So, Tony, I'd be very keen if you could enlighten me on that one, if there is a way. Because I know so many people don't want those smart meters attached to their homes, because not only do they measure the electricity, I guess any which way they like to measure it, but they can also limit the energy going into your property from the grid. So when they say they need to harvest from the energy and everybody on a really hot day needs to turn their air conditioner off and they don't, well, what they can do through your smart meter is turn your power usage back down, or just simply turn your air conditioner off. Or it's a rather sneaky way of doing it, because I have a friend who in Queensland who owns a massage, I beg your pardon, a tattoo shop. And she was saying that while the air conditioner was set at 20 or 21 degrees, the shop did not seem to get that cold. In fact, it didn't get anywhere near that cold. It was more like 26 or 7 degrees. Now, that's probably livable for most people in a working environment, I guess. But if you have air conditioning, you would expect to be reasonably cool in a fairly small working environment. So that's an example of how they actually gain down your air conditioner. They do it through the smart meter, and it just doesn't produce as much cold air because they're not throwing as much power into it, but it doesn't outwardly tell you that it's producing less power. That's why they call it smart. It's smart for them, not terribly smart for us. But can you actually resist getting one in your property? The short answer in my mind to that, and I could be 100% wrong, the short answer in my mind to that is no, because you do not own the meter on your house. Okay, you do not own the line carrying the electricity to your property. You don't own the pole out front of your house that the line comes from, much less the transformer or the line works leading to your house. That is all owned by the infrastructure energy companies. And I dare say this is where Dodo are coming from, although I thought Dodo were a phone company. I didn't know they were into energy. I suppose these days they're into most things. They have full access to their own equipment. So don't know. I really don't know how you would block them. There may be a way, as Tony, and if Tony can enlighten us further down in the chat, I may miss it, but hopefully Vince will get that and keep us up to date. All right, I'm just going flicking back to the live chat. Hello, Connie. Nice to see you in early tonight. G'day, Andrew. I'm scrolling up rather than down. Who else was in the chat? The lovely Sue. Of course, DM, Mr. Bergworth. Well, he was in. I don't know if he's still in, but he's in. He'll be interested in tonight's show. There's a few interesting little bits and pieces. Sue's. Michelle, I am so sorry to get the news about your sister. It's terribly sad, but at least, as you say, no more suffering. So thoughts and prayers with you and your family during this time. Okay, Macca, here's a bit of advice. Dodo can only come onto your property to read the meter. If you do not give them your consent, they cannot enter without a warrant. No, I'm not sure. Well, that might, once again, might be dependent on where you live, in which state. I am reasonably confident that in Queensland, and I thought Victoria, and I'd be amazed if it wasn't New South Wales, that your meter must be accessible. It must be on the outside of your fenced property, or if it's behind a fence, it must be accessible to the person who has to come and read the meter. Now, what they don't do anymore is actually come to your house and read your meter. So if you happen to move, if you're renting, for instance, and you happen to move into a new house, and you're plugged in just all the same stuff you used to have in your old house, and let's say your electricity bill per quarter was, I don't know, $700. I'm just pulling figures here. So let's say it was $700. But when you get to your new property and you get your first electricity bill from them, it turns out to be $1,100. But you've only plugged in the same amount of stuff you had before. You haven't used any more electricity. But all of a sudden, it's $1,100. Why the hell is that? Well, it's not because somebody came out and read your meter. What they do is they take an average. They look back over the bills on that property for the last however long, and they make up an average, and they send it to you. Now, I only know this because I put it to the test in a house I once lived in I was getting huge electricity bills, and there was only Laura and I living in it. Literally 2 TVs and 2 computers and 1 fridge working, very few lights, and computers and TVs notwithstanding, we were both working, so it wasn't like they were on all day or all night. So never understood how I was getting these hugely exorbitant things. And I kept turning things off around the property to see if it made any difference. And it didn't. I eventually had them come out and test the meter and all sorts of things. And that's where I learned that if I put the meter behind a fence, they have every right to get to that, whichever way. You've got to give them access, whether that's through your front door or give them a gate they can get to. Now, if you put a dog in your backyard that may not like a strange person coming into the backyard, then they can actually have you for that. So that was certainly in Queensland. I don't know about other places, but my understanding is they have to be able to gain access to the meter, not that they send anybody to it to read it anymore. And the smart meter, supposedly, is going to give us all so much better, cheaper power, more accurate reading. I call bullshit, but we'll see what happens. Hello, Rach. Nice to see you in too. And Dave-O, hope you are well. The Silver Fox, the Silver Fox was off ploughing the other night, or cropping, or doing something. So I hope you're off the tractor, mate, and all things going well. You managed to get the crops in, or whatever it is you are actually doing. G'day, Chaos. What the? Gold is back above $5,200, and that sort of leads me into one of the first pictures I wanted to show tonight. Thank you so much, What the? $5,242.26 currently on the Ainsley bullion ticker. Silver has been going up and going down, going up and going down like a bride's nightie. It's been bloody weird. Back over $51 at the moment, and I saw it as low as $49 a couple of days ago. Might have been yesterday. It does look to be on the increase. I spoke with Michael Engerman from Ainsley Bullion yesterday, and I was going to try and get him on for a bit of a chat, but he's an extremely busy man, and we're aiming for a bit of a chat this Friday or possibly Saturday if we can't make it Friday day, about exactly what's going on in the market. But I commend you folks, if you want to see what's going on with gold, silver, and a number of other products, including platinum and the other precious metals. AinsleyBullion.com.au is the place to go. And if I just click on here, you can have a bit of a look at some of the new coins that have just been released. There is a 1 ounce gold bullion coin. Of course, there is the usual Ainslie minted range that they have. But these 2025 1 ounce gold coins are truly spectacular. If you're lucky enough to be able to afford one or two of them, you can see the swan one there. And I particularly love, I've got a silver lunar snake, rather a silver lunar snake, but not the gold, obviously. But you can see the range hole there, and they've got some specials on. I can't tell you, or can I? Let me just bring up an email very quickly, if I can find it. That's it right there. So yeah, those there's a 1 ounce silver coin too, the 225th anniversary of the Australian Proclamation. That's a Perth Mint coin that comes in silver and gold. And then there is the new EMU 2025 Perth Mint coin, which you can see up there on the screen as it rolls through there too. There are a couple of evenings coming up if you're interested in catching up with the guys from Ainslie, particularly if you're down in Melbourne. There is a Learn Why Gold and Silver Have Stood the Test of Time night, and how it will protect your wealth during uncertain times, why it's relevant and more relevant today than ever. That's happening on Wednesday the 14th, so I think next Wednesday, between 6 and 8 in the lobby lounge at 357 Collins Street in Melbourne. And if you want to get along to that one, it's probably worth calling the Ainslie office in Melbourne and letting them know that you're popping along. But that's coming up next Wednesday night at 357 Collins Street in Melbourne, the Lobby Lounge it's called, and it's a beautiful little lounge. I've been there once before myself. Also in Brisbane, if you want to catch up with the Ainslie crew there, of course, they're always available in Creek Street. But coming up a little later this month, they will be having another SMSF night and hosting a bullion crypto night as well. I'll be talking all about the latest moves and grooves with regard to bullion, crypto, and self-managed super funds. Thursday the 22nd is the place, and that's going to be at the Blue Tower. That is the building that Ainslie Bullion are in, 12 Creek Street in the city. And it's going to be a registered event. So if you are going to go to that one, give Ainslie Bullion a call in Brisbane, and you'll be able to pop along and see them there. Also, go and check out the range of new coins that have popped up on AinsleyBullion.com.au. All right, let's get into a couple of the interesting things that we've discovered over the last day or so. What the? Nice pickup on your behalf. Couldn't agree more. The ALP branch stacked Australia by bringing in thousands of Labor voters from overseas, and nothing has changed. If you follow TikTok or Instagram, or I'm not sure about Facebook, I haven't been on that much, or I haven't been on any of them really in the last day or two, but last I saw, there was a number of feeds coming up, particularly with Australians who are working in what looked to be FIFO jobs, or at least construction roles, and may not be FIFO actually, it was more local construction roles. And they were talking to what appeared to be some new immigrants who were rejoicing that the fact that Albo got back in, and was terribly excited about it. And of course, they thanked him very much for allowing him, brother, sister, mother, auntie, uncle, the whole family, the next door neighbours and everybody else to come through the gate as well. A lot of Indian people in that regard. And I'm only saying that because while I was reading that article, an interesting ad came up. And this is it. Become a police officer. Take our eligibility test to find out if you are ready to join. Well, we all know how the eligibility test, works and what sort of people they're looking for. Never forget. Never forget. Now, these are Victorian police assaulting an old lady, but obviously, Queensland finding it a bit hard at the moment. But in an article where they're talking about immigration, and probably immigration in a reasonably positive way, this ad gets popped up. And who are they targeting? Well, I would like to think that they're targeting all Australians. But at this point in time, I know that they are specifically targeting the immigrant population that is close to getting citizenship. Apparently, it's not necessary that you have citizenship, just that you have maybe no brain and the ability to follow orders that you're given, whether you like them or not. Probably the only criteria that I suspect Queensland and many other police forces actually adhere to, but we'll see what happens. All right. Do we really believe that Labor won the election? So there has been a lot of discussion about the number of people, well, more particularly the number of states that seem to have been won in a blue regard versus the number of states won by red. Jacinta Napigira-Price has come out with a very interesting post, and I think that I needed to bring that up so I can actually read it on something else. Give me a moment here. She said, why does the heat map on the election vote show a majority blue, Liberal and National vote, and yet Labor won? We need a recount of the ballot. This election is rigged. This is from The Guardian. There are 6,174,086 ballots missing. Now, that's what she's saying, and I've gone and checked and done looked at a few different sites, but there really is only one site that is worth looking at. And I will bring that up for you right now. That's this one. Now, this is the tally room, the AEC tally room site. And I draw your attention down here to the highlighted blue line. Eligible electors up the top, 18,098,797. The current count, which seems to be going up every hour or so by a couple of 100,000, the current voter turnout is 11,527,870, which represents a 63.69% voter turnout, which at this point is down nearly 27% from last time. Now, that turnout number is changing. Probably change while we're looking at it. Now, obviously, postal voting and absentee voting continues. I don't understand why this voting process takes so long, and yet the lower house, we seem to be able to get elbow sleazy elected inside 2 hours of counting. In fact, I'm not completely sure because I didn't pay any attention to any telecast, but the first I was aware that they were declaring him winner was about 9:30 Saturday night. But I'm led to believe that they started declaring him at about 8:30 Saturday night. So the polls had been closed 2.5 hours and only half an hour in Western Australia. And yet we've been able to materialise with a Labor win. So we look at this and we see an awful lot of blue. An awful lot of blue. But what do we do with the blue? Well, when you look at it, a lot of Western Australia doesn't have too many voters living in it. A lot of Western Australia. And so those not too many voters obviously added up to not enough. The Northern Territory obviously went the other way. They voted Labor. I don't know whether to be surprised, shocked or amazed about that. If I was living there, I probably would be, but I don't know what the alternative was up there because, well, the orange bit in the middle there, that looks like Katter territory to me. And then the far north tip of Queensland appears to be Labor, which, once again, really across that whole top area there's not a vast number of voters. These aren't huge populous cities we're talking about. Mount Isa is probably the biggest one inland. And obviously Cairns, which is, judging by that map, right on the boundary of Katter country and, well, Liberal country by the look of it, Liberal National country. You come down the east coast, you find Brisbane, the Sunshine Coast, and, well, it looks to be as far out as, say, Toowoomba, is all red. Absolutely all red. You get a little bit of Liberal back down through the Gold Coast and through the Northern Rivers, and then it seems to go red again in the likes of Byron Bay and Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie, Newcastle, yada, 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 yada. Most of the east coast of Australia, and then, of course, around Melbourne. Of course, there is some bloody good news that seems to have come out of Melbourne late today, and that is that the green moron, freak and bloody liar, Adam Bandit, or Bandit as I like to call him, has lost his green seat of Melbourne. Now, Jacinta Naparjima-Price is calling for a recount of all votes in the system, and I'm not suggesting that's a bad idea. I'm just not sure that there are enough, even though the map shows a lot of blue. I'm just not sure there are enough votes in a lot of those areas. Northern South Australia, Western Australia, Central Western Queensland, Southern Queensland. I'm just not sure there's enough votes in it. But I would certainly subscribe to the theory of a recount with, maybe some of us to help scrutineer or to help supervise what it is they're actually counting. I've had a number of people talk to me about their experience, both at the ballot box, trying to vote, and working for the AEC at a polling place. Now, some of the things that these people are telling me, and some of them are supervisors, like AEC supervisors, some of the things that they're telling me indicate that we need to look a lot deeper into how the vote was conducted and do a recount. The two-party preferred system, as we understand it and understood it leading up to the election, isn't necessarily how the votes are counted, and certainly the preferences for those voting. So the lower house was decided on two-party preferred preference, or two-party preferred. That's how they split the votes. Liberal and Labor. Did they go to preferences? I ask you this, if they did, how did they manage to count handwritten paper votes? Because they can only start counting at 6 o'clock when the doors close. And then there's a little bit of rigmarole, a little bit of messing around while the last things are sorted out and they set up to do the count. Everybody finds their position and then it begins. So let's say, I'll be generous and say the count starts at 6:15 rather than 6 o'clock. How is it that they're able to count with any guarantee of certainty of the result all of those hand-numbered votes from every polling booth in Australia? Bear in mind, there are a lot of little ones out in the middle of nowhere, but there are a lot of very big ones in the city areas. How do they get to call the election 2.5 hours, 2.25 hours, or let's be friendly and say it was 3 hours when I first saw it, after the poll closes? Am I the only one that thinks that's a bit strange? I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm very happy for you guys to set me straight if that is indeed the case. But it really, I find it very weird. Now, if the AEC are doing this, if the AEC are presiding over what, if this is being done, would only be called a fraudulent election. And look, I paid so little interest in this election that I didn't even bother going to look for the election writ this time, because what farce it would be. But I now find myself wondering, maybe I should have gone and had a look. Did anybody see the election writ up at a polling place? I bet they didn't. Did any of you ask to see it? And if you did see it, where did the Governor-General sign this one? Was it on the witness spot like the last one? Or did he actually sign it in the right spot? And what's more, who was the Special Minister of State that actually witnessed or signed, and I suspect signed, the writ that isn't put up everywhere and certainly doesn't have the right stamp on it? So the AEC may or may not have presided over a fraudulent election. What do we do about it? Who do we talk to? Who do we report that to? The federal police? Well, I have reason to believe, and some recent experience with police in Queensland, and found some of them to be real human beings, really nice people, very interested, very caring, and mildly awake. With potential to grow, I should say. I don't know about the federal police. I've never had much to do with them, although Paul Offey has had a great deal to do with them and needs our support to go and deal with them again. Back in that court, we're still trying to raise enough money to get him a solicitor. We need a barrister to come and help him rather urgently. So if you know one that can help us, we are in desperate need. The only way we can do that is with funding. And you can go to freedomtruck.com.au from memory and help out there if you can. I must get them on for another chat very soon. But back to the AEC. Who do we talk to? I mean, we could... it's probably a bit rude. But we could go to that woman in the freedom movement who seems to be so good at raising large amounts of money in a very small amount of time. What did she raise down the other day when she announced that she was going to have a go at Dan Andrews in court? $104,000 in 4 days she was able to raise. As I said at the time, I struggled for the freedom movement to raise $104 in 4 days, let alone $104,000 in 4 days. She is able to raise a huge amount of money very quickly, this woman. Got arrested, got a motorhome, $253,000 motorhome. Went on a world trip, got no money, comes back, says, I'm going to sue Dan Andrews, gets $104,000, almost overnight. Well, over 3 nights and a day. Do we really think this is feasible and real? Is this someone you would support as the freedom movement goes forward? Now, I've had a lot of phone calls in the last couple of days, and furthering on from what Darren Bergwerf and I spoke about the other night, about bringing the freedom movement together and how we all do it. And I'd like to thank Donna from Coffs Harbour for her input with me today. It was a very interesting and decent conversation that we've had, and we've all got genuine intentions to bring everybody together. But the problem that we have is ego and a diverse range of ideas that many people have spent a lifetime, in some cases, researching. So they have unwavering belief in what it is they would put forward to us as any solution. And I don't blame them for that unwavering confidence at all, nor the ego that may be developed around it, because this is deep, deep stuff, deep knowledge, deep legal knowledge. And many people's minds, including my own, is not up for the deepest parts of this. So that's why it's important that we get it in front of as many people as possible before we put it out as a solution. We need to put it out as a potential solution. Now, whether or not we put that out publicly, and I'm sort of a bit on the fence on whether or not it should get out publicly, or we should, between ourselves, come up with some sort of submission board, for the want of a better term, where a number of people, selected by you, sit with a level of expertise that they bring to the table to hear these presentations. Now, whether those presentations come from Darren and what he's working on, or they come from Dick Yardley and what he's working on, or they come from Gap and what Rod and his team are working on, or indeed if they come from Tim Dwyer and what they're working on, or if it comes from the corruption whistleblower and what they're coming on, comes from Ramona and what she's working. Can you see how many people, and this is just a small group, I haven't mentioned them all, these are just the ones I've come up with the top of my head. There are so many of these groups wanting to do the best thing for us all believing they are doing the best thing for us all, and I can't fault them in any way, shape, or form. I believe they believe that. But when we get to the actual presenting part and giving it to we the people to try and digest, we run into a number of problems. Some of these people who have put together magnificent research that is very, very, very difficult to fault, unless you're lazy and you're just saying, I don't believe it. Some of these people are hyper-intelligent beings, but they don't present very well. They don't speak like I do because they haven't spent 40 years speaking. They spent 40 years researching, writing, and being told they're fucking crazy. They have a right to the confidence of their own research. We, the people, have a right to look at it, view it, pick it apart on an intellectual level, because that is the level it will be brought to us. All right? Where we have to find an accommodation is how to bring these myriad solutions to somewhere where we can all talk about it. When I say all, we can all talk about it, we're those who are bringing all of these different ways together. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I believe all of these groups have a number of parts of the jigsaw, and a number of them put together in the right places. A number of them are creating the same jigsaw, but we are missing certain pieces. Everyone is missing certain pieces. Now, Dick Yardley might have a piece that Tim Dwyer doesn't have. Ramona might have a piece that nobody else has. There are so many different pieces. How do we get everybody with that sort of knowledge into one place and not have an ego explosion when it happens? Because if we are going to have some sort of a submission group that analyzes this, they are going to come back, and by design, that group will come back with questions, because we need a group like that to ask whether they be what some people might be assumed to be stupid questions, or they ask very, very detailed, highly intellectual ones. These questions have to be asked and answered. And if they can't be answered, then that's not a bad thing. And that is certainly not going to be a slight against anybody's research or anybody's effort that they've put in over the years. What it does is show us one point where we need to start looking closer. And if we have that in a dozen or half a dozen or 25 or 50 different submissions, and we find those little missing points in each one, then with God's grace and blessing, we might find all the pieces to the puzzle, and together on a much larger table, together, put them all together. I probably could have phrased that better, but you get the idea. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, but I dropped the mouse. So hang on a minute, I've got to find the mouse. Right, I found the mouse. I really would like to know your thoughts on that, because the other part that we need to be aware of in all of this is that the people that our intellectuals, our researchers, these people who've dedicated their lives to constitutional law and finding the truth out between the red and the green book, these people have a vested interest in helping us all, and I would hope that they would see what I've said tonight not as any kind of a red flag. I'm just trying to find a way forward and start the conversation. And certainly between Vince and myself, and I know there's a few businesses that would get behind supporting us in this endeavor, I have a way we can do this. I have a venue, but we're going to have to get some funding for it. And we can do it privately. And I think initially that is a good idea. I think submissions could be filmed and aired later, but I think this should all be done privately, initially. Maybe at the end of every day, we have an update of what was discussed and what the plan is for the next day. I don't suspect that this kind of an event could be held in anything less than a week. It's not going to be held over a weekend. It is going to require a convention-style approach where the parties will get to present. Those who they present to will obviously have to digest what has been presented and then have an opportunity to ask questions of those who presented it. Then some conclusions will be drawn, or maybe some things pointed out where we might have found a missing piece, or at least found a junction that's worth exploring, and we move on to the next. Now, over the course of a couple of days, we should probably get through everybody's submission. And once everybody's submissions have been forward and conversation has been had about those missing pieces, maybe we all break off into groups and work on finding those pieces, work on making it together and bringing all our documents together into a new one with these new pieces. And that at the end of 5 or 6 days or 7 days, whatever it needs to be, we can present a well-constructed, well-thought-out, deeply researched and lawful plan going forward. All of us that have, I hate the word influence, but any kind of influence, all of us that have done any research, all of us that have done research for 30, 20, 10 years, anybody who has put the time together, and there are a number I've mentioned already, and there are many others who've put together documents that they feel could be the solution. Now, if we can do this, we have a united plan going forward, something we can all talk about. We can, if it's important to those who construct it, take some ownership of. It's not important to me, but, you know, I'm probably not going to be constructing a document like that. So for those that have been doing it for 30 or 40 years, maybe getting their name on it isn't such a bad thing, because it is without that deep level of commitment that we wouldn't be where we are today. From the many different people that I've bumped into, run into, heard from, heard read, listened to over the last 4 to 5 years. We've all got good stuff to say. There's always good research. But as we've found, there is always division. There is always ego. And until that can be looked past, can be moved beyond, then I've failed to see how any of us are going to make any difference anywhere, anytime during our lifetime. And that is deeply, deeply going to affect our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, should they be lucky enough ever to be born, given the deep level of criminality that's taken place over the last few years. And one of the known things, I don't know if I can mention it yet on YouTube, so, but it's now clearly, and it has been discussed now in the US Senate, pardon me, on a number of times, but it's clear, 100% unequivocally true, that USAID funded the spicy cough research in that Chinese lab. and it was obfuscated by, I think I get banned for saying his name these days, but that fellow that starts with F, it was obfuscated by him and buried in the figures in other areas. So it became essentially a black project, which means that the US public funded the spicy cough pandemic and then funded Big Pharma in fixing it. But in the fix, as we all know, there's so many fixes in the fix, and there are escalated, well, don't forget, they're serious, but put aside for one moment the escalating level of death and take a deep, hard research look at the level of infertility in people aged 18 to 30. Deep levels of infertility, male and female. They are culling us. They are culling us. They are rigging our elections. Where's the bloody mouse gone again? They are rigging our elections, and they are rigging them from the top down. Where do we go? AEC? I think if we were going to challenge any kind of electoral result, you'd have to take the AEC on in the High Court. And last I heard, it was $240,000 to take anything to the High Court and have some registrar read it and knock you back. Don't know if you still have to pay the $240,000, but I'm sure there'll be a fairly hefty fee for having some snot-nosed little yes man sitting in, well, I don't know if he sits in a wig or just a brown jacket, but or a black coat. But those registrars, they're very good at blocking any sorts of submissions that look like they might get to the truth, and they block them on all these weird little ways. Ah, God. Just having a bit of a scroll through a few of your comments. God adds, I could not agree with you more. The WEF need to be dragged before a people's jury, but the problem is that people's jury would have to come from people all over the world. And if we had one person from every country in the world, what is there, 250 something nations in the world? It's a bloody big jury. I saw somebody mention Donald Trump. The only way I think you ever get to clean out the WEF is to get Donald Trump and whatever military is required to clean out the WEF, the IMF, the WHO. That probably requires putting big smoking holes in certain parts of Zurich and Geneva, where certain banks are located. Will that happen? I don't know. I got to say, I've lost a lot of faith in anything that anything American at the moment. I'm bored of it. America isn't coming to save us, and the white hats, God bless them, if they are working hard. Well, I don't know what they're working hard on. If they feel that by having Anthony Albanese elected again in what appears to be a landslide victory is going to wake up more Australians, well, as Vince said, I think in a comment earlier that I saw, the next 3 years are indeed going to be bloody hell. And will people understand that? Will people equate that? Will they? Well, what is the next step? Because we're on a roundabout to elections here. We need to have something different. And while we may get a little bit more popular support with a few more people waking up, we are still going to run into that singular question that we come back to every time. Oh, what can we do about it? Well, it's only me. What can I do? Well, judging by the tally room, it looks like there's 7.5 million Australians who either didn't bother turning up, and that's likely to change a little bit. Let me just refresh it and see whether or not that has... change. No. So there's still about 7.5 million Australians who whose vote hasn't been counted yet. I will be very interested to see exactly how many Australians wound up voting. And wouldn't it be great if we could actually find out what the AEC does with all of these votes and go and get them independently verified? Shouldn't we, the people, have a way of doing that? Because we do not trust what the AEC have done. And God knows the AEC have admitted mistakes. They did so in Melbourne, in the seat of Melbourne, where they were preferencing, in their two-party preferred tally room voting, they were preferencing Liberal and Greens, not Labor and Greens. And it turns out that Labor are the ones who've won the seat. Bandt was saying for days, oh, no, I'm in with a chance. It's very tight. And then they swapped all that around and, nope, gone. So Albo, 37% of the primary and won 88 seats. That is what they say, 37% of the primary. Well, that's hardly a mandate to do anything. And as I showed you at the top of the show, no, that's the wrong one. I'll show you this one. This is what they plan on bringing us, the Voice Treaty. They're going to, because they're going to call it a different name. And you heard Albanese say last week and the week leading up, the former government walked away from that. Well, yeah, it was the former government because they were in limp mode. But now the new government, what are they going to do? Well, you can guarantee they're going to legislate this shit to us. The mis and disinformation bill, well, we already know how that's gone and it's only going to get tougher. Central bank digital currency, bet your ass. Online digital IDs for social media, woohoo. It's all coming, kids. Tax on unrealised gains. Oh, where should you be putting your money if they're going to get tax on unrealised gains? You know where I'd be putting it, don't you? AinsleyBullion.com.au. Don't forget to mention my name in the notes. You'll get a little discount. Destruction of the energy grid. Well, they seem to be doing that quite well. And, of course, putting us into a debt spiral that will keep us as slaves for as long as they need. John Adams, another gold guy, had a pretty good thought. This happened, he put this out on the night of the election. Tonight, the Australian people opted for hyperinflation. The value of the Australian dollar will continue to sink over the next 3 years with irresponsible economic policies and the huge amount of bullshit people they're going to let through the doors. Personally, he's not experiencing any cost of living issues, which is great for him. He's debt-free. The house is owned outright and is shielded from inflation. He tells us that we could all be like that if we'd only listened earlier. John speaks a lot about gold and silver bullion, just between you, me, and the gatepost, if you don't know his name. There are a couple of other little things I was going to mention here, but I've rambled on a little bit longer than I thought tonight on this first thing. Diddy's in a bit of a spot. He's looking pretty cool. He hasn't had any dye in his hair in a little while, but he's now grey like me, although a little more grey on top by the sound of it. They are picking jurors at the moment. They have a jury pool or a jurist pool of 250 plus people. And they are slowly but surely working their way through to find 12 who will sit in judgment, his peers, who will sit in judgment in the trial. Now, they're aiming to get all of that jury selection done this week, and questions will start next week. Of course, we're already aware of some of the names that are coming out and may be used in the trial. Why do we know them? Well, because the trial judge used them when he was asking questions of prospective jurors. What do you know about Mike Myers? What do you know about Michael B. Jordan? And a couple of others that they've brought up and used. Now, apparently, there is quite an extensive list, and the judge is just randomly picking names from it with various jurors. So I haven't seen any reporting today. I've been out. We did 26 ton of mulch today. Anybody interested in mulch? Send me an email, carl@vofhq.com. Bring your trailer. We got a lot of mulch. Yes, anyway, Diddy's trial looks like it's going to be getting underway next week. And some more rather interesting names will be popping up in the not too distant future, I am sure. I don't know how they're going to, well, I do know how they're going to select the jury. They're just going to keep going until they got enough people who don't really know who he is and clearly don't mind. I think his defense is that he is a swinger and that he's done nothing more than what swingers normally do. I think we will find out through the course of the case that he has done decidedly a large amount more than what swingers do. And in fact, swingers organisations around the world, I've seen a couple of stories have come out and basically lambasted him for using them as an excuse, or using the swinging lifestyle as an excuse. The swinging lifestyle is nothing like what Diddy portrays. The swinging lifestyle apparently is all about permission and acceptance and relationships and all that sort of stuff, whereas Diddy's stuff seemed to be more, it is alleged, about drugging you and raping you. And that's a pretty significant difference between swinging and swingers clubs and anything Diddy was doing inside his clubs, I suspect. Speaking of clubs, there's a little club that comes together every so often. A whole bunch of weird men get together in their strange little robes, and they sit in a deep, dark room that doesn't have anybody else watching apart from their little slaves who pamper them day in and day out in various different ways. And those blokes sit around and discuss the merits of who should be the next man capable of wearing a hat 3 foot tall and carrying a staff with a crook on the end of it, and supposedly being the leader of the billions of Catholics all over the world. Of course, I'm talking about Conclave, and they're electing a new pope. I could give a shit. However, I thought I'd just bring up, back in 1985, the Vatican released a coin. It's rather interesting to note that on that coin, for whatever reason, they decided to put an aeroplane leaving a chemtrail. And I'm going to call it a chemtrail, because why the bloody hell would the Vatican put a contrail there? Give me a good reason. No problem. Oh, we needed to fill up that bit of the coin? No, maybe I'm not a coin designer. But I do find it all a little bit weird. Speaking of a little bit weird, finally tonight, nothing could be truer. Julian Assange, and if you do still have access to the WikiLeaks files, I urge you to start doing and learn what a keyword search is, and start thinking of some keywords and type them into those files. You are going to find some very interesting information out. And I have a feeling we are about to learn a lot more from Julian Assange in the next 6 to 8 weeks than maybe any of us ever dreamed possible. So on that note, I might love you and leave you tonight. I'll have a little bit of a look through a couple of your things. Yeah. Thanks, Denise. You thought that was a Trump plane. No, not quite. No, that's a Vatican coin from 1985. Yeah, look, J1, I am so with you on the executive orders. I've been on the executive orders since 2017. And to be honest, I cling to those executive orders because they have never been rescinded. Now, if you understand executive orders, if you understand military law, and I've got to say, a lot of people now have sworn off Derek Johnson. I never got to speak to Derek for a variety of reasons. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched anything of his in quite a while either. But when he was talking about military law, the law of and the law of war manual, he is 100% on the money. Those executive orders that Trump put into operation in 2017, particularly where the military get to take control if there is any, slightest thought that there was some international government trying to fiddle the election results. And that was clear that that was happening. The military took over at that point. Now, Trump won in 2016. instigated those military orders, went to 2020, lost the election. The story has been that the White Hats now have been using that time. Trump has been president in exile. Biden has been president in name only. And, did you hear they're renaming the San Andreas Fault? They're renaming it Biden's Fault. I thought that was funny. So there is a great deal of change in the background that has, I think, by design been forgotten. Things like those executive orders that come out of October 2017 and September 2017. They have not been rescinded. I have to believe that the military are in control, because I haven't seen anything that convinces me otherwise, and I have seen so much that convinces me it's true. Now, whether or not you're seeing that same stuff as me, or you have that same level of belief as me, I don't know. But I know that where we are together, we're in one place. I know where we are in lockstep. We've had enough. It has to end. And if there isn't a military solution, if there isn't a Space Force solution, if there isn't a white hat or a good guy solution, then what other solutions are we left with? I find that to be probably one of the scariest issues that we confront today. What are we left with? Are we left with a nation of zombies who are finally woken up but are so drugged up, so poisoned, so debilitated that they're of little use to us as a force? I mean, as a voting force or any other kind of force for that matter, because their brains, well, they're soggy enough now, but their brains are not going to take anything we do. There's always going to be a group, and it could be a large group, that will never accept what we say, what we stand for, what we believe. What happens when those people start losing their way? The next 3 years, people, I predict, are going to be quite dire in many ways. All that food you stocked up on for so many years, go and check the use-by dates. Not because I think the world's going to turn off and there's going to be any great, movies 24 hours a day or anything like that. Nope. I think we are going to have rampaging gangs on our streets stealing our shit and people fighting back. I think we're going to have such huge supply chain problems that food, for people who are addicted to finding food from a supermarket and nowhere else, is going to become a life and death proposition. Why do I think that? The Trump tariffs have a great deal to do with it. Those tariffs now have been flagged only, for a few weeks, but there has been ongoing trade battles with China in particular in the US over the last few months. What this does is meant that the supply chain, the factories in China, are not able to produce because they're not getting any orders. So those big factories are starting to lay people off, starting to close down. The stuff that is being made relatively slowly and is then being shipped as best it can to various destinations around the world. I'm not completely sure yet that any ships from China traversing to the US are actually allowed into port. So therefore, any of those products that are due in America aren't going to be hitting those ports anytime soon unless the tariffs involved are paid. That'll mean some of this stuff will start coming to Australia, but unfortunately, we order different things and in vastly different levels than America and Europe, for that matter. So are they going to go to the expense of sending a ship a week or 2 ships a week or 10 ships a week? I don't know how many ships arrive in Australia every week carrying shit from China, but I imagine just about every one of them. And we probably get 300 or 400 ships arriving around this country every day or every week. So our supply chains are going to be stuffed. You're already seeing it in your supermarkets. I walked into our local supermarket here has God's all trouble filling its shelves. It's an IGA. It's only a little IGA, I'll admit. There probably are better stocked ones closer to the coast. However, the last time I walked into any supermarket of any reasonable size, there were huge holes on their shelves. And toilet paper seemed to be in abundance for a change. So I would be preparing, folks. Prepare. Who cares if in 3 years' time you've got 10 or 15 or 20 plastic container loads full of freeze-dried food? Who cares? Go for a weekend party. Call it a, survival party for the weekend. Go for a month. But where are you going to be if you don't have it? Where are you going to be if the zombies come calling? And where are you going to be if the people come calling? I can tell you where I won't be. I will not be on the road with the dickheads. Have a good night, folks.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!